All right, I'm going to go over this review with you guys. The individual topics, so anything from 5.3 to 5.6, the individual videos are not up. But this review covers every major topic that you're going to see on your test, and it covers a little bit of everything that was covered in your class notes, right? So your class notes mainly had a lot of examples, and we introduced the concept briefly. But this will help, especially this first page, with any confusion about the formulas and whatnot. So let's just get started. This first page is absolutely necessary, or this first part is absolutely necessary to have memorized. All right, I expect you all to have this memorized by now. And if you don't have it memorized by now, you need to commit all of this to memory. So everything in this first part that says formulas. All right, so the slope of a line is something that we did in an earlier quiz for this chapter, right? So maybe about 2 quizzes ago. The slope of a line is described as the letter m, and we say that this is the slope of a line between 2 points is going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so for example, if I give you 2 points and I ask you to find the slope between them, then this is the formula that we'll be using. All right. The equation of a line in slope-intercept form is going to be described as y equals mx plus b. Right? Again, hopefully you guys have this memorized by now. I know a lot of you have the formula memorized. You know how to identify mx plus b, but you don't know what it means, right? This is the equation in slope-intercept form. Remember, your slope is your m, your intercept is b, right? It's in the name, so you should know it. All right, the next one is going to be the equation of a line in point-slope form. Again, we're given a point, right? A point is a point x1, y1, and our slope is still m, right? So our formula is going to have a point and a slope. It's going to be described as y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. All right, standard form is a little bit newer for you guys. The equation of a line in standard form is going to be described as ax plus by equals c. All right, the individual letters here, the a, b, and c, don't really give you much information about a point, a slope, or an intercept, but you can use this form to find intercepts. All right, so for example, something like, I'll just write down here, 4x plus 6y equals 48. Right, this is an example of an equation of a line in standard form, right? We have that a is 4, b is 6, and c is 48. We'll see in the next slide how to actually use this in the context of a problem. All right, and I'll just write some examples for the other equations up here, right? So y, for example, y minus 1 equals 1/2 x plus 5. Right, in this case, m is your slope of 1/2, and your point x1, y1 is going to be -5, 1, right? X goes with x, y goes with y. All right, and then for slope-intercept form, I'll give you, let's say, -2/3 x plus 1. Right, your slope in this case is going to be -2/3, and your y-intercept is going to be 1. All right, so these are just some examples to go with these equations of a line. All right, the slope of a line in standard form, we didn't talk much about this. It's not crucial for your test, but it's helpful in this review to find the slope of a line in standard form. It's going to be m equals -a over b. All right. If you can't do it this way, like if you can't remember this formula, what you can do instead is you can find the intercepts. So I expect you all to be able to find the intercepts given a line in standard form. And you can use that in your slope formula that we described up here. Right, your slope formula up here. All right, so that would give you the same answer. All right, moving on to parallel and perpendicular lines. With parallel lines, they're going to have equal, right, or same, right? It doesn't really matter how you say it, just as long as you know that they're going to be exactly the same. Parallel lines have equal slopes, the same slopes. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. All right, opposite meaning the sign, and then reciprocal meaning we flip the fraction. If it's not a fraction, you're going to write it as a fraction by putting it over 1, and then you flip that. All right, we'll do some examples like that later on. A horizontal line is always going to take the form of y equals a number, and a horizontal line has a slope of 0, always. All right, on that note, a vertical line is going to have it's going to take the form of x equals a number, and it's going to have an undefined slope, so an undefined slope. All right, so one way that I like to remember this, doesn't really mean much, but think of hoi vux, right? It's something that a teacher of mine in high school mentioned once, but think of it like h goes with y, so horizontal is y, vertical is x, right? So it's just something small that you could maybe remember if you have a hard time remembering which one's horizontal and which one's vertical. You can remember this hoi vux, right? H horizontal is y, vertical is x. All right, something like that. Or you can look at it graphically and you can see where it crosses either the x or the y axis. If it crosses the x axis, you'll see that it's going to be vertical. And if it crosses the y axis, you'll see that it's horizontal. All right, so that's the biggest concepts that you're going to need to know for your test. Again, majority of these should already be stuck in your heads by now, right? I know some of these are relatively newer, so take the time to commit all of this to memory. All right. Now let's get started. So one of the earlier lessons in this chapter was finding the slope. Now between 2 points, we used a formula, right? Remember, finding the slope between 2 points was y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and label my points. Doesn't really matter which one is which. Just as long as it's consistent, meaning I have an x1 and a y1 in the same point, and an x2 and a y2 in the same point. All right, so I'm going to write my equation m equals, and I'm going to plug in all the information that I have. y2 is 1, all right, and y1 is 3, so 1 minus 3. And on the bottom, I have an x2, which is 1. an x2, which is 2, minus x1, which is 5. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and evaluate this. The top is going to get you 1 minus 3, which is negative 2, over the bottom is 2 minus 5, which is negative 3. All right, negative 2 over negative 3, negative divided by negative cancels out, and you get a positive answer. So your slope is going to get you a positive 2/3. All right. All right, let's try the same thing with the next one. All right, I'm going to go ahead and label my points x1, y1, and x2, y2. So I'm going to plug this into my slope formula. All right, so I'm going to have a y2, which is 5, minus y1, which is 1, over x2, which is 10, minus x1, which is 4. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and evaluate the top and the bottom. 5 minus 1 is 4. 10 minus 4 is 6. 4 over 6 is going to simplify. Right? You cannot leave it like this. You need to simplify your answers fully. I'm going to divide by 2 on the top and the bottom. That's the common factor that they share. All right, so we get 2 over 3 as our slope. All right, so same thing as the previous problem. All right, m is 2 over 3. All right. Now, let's look at the next one. Number 3. Again, same thing. Let's go ahead and label x1, y1, x2, y2. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. M equals, I'm going to say y2 is 5 minus y1 is 2 over x2 is negative 2 minus x1 is negative 2. So we have a minus a negative 2. And then on the top, 5 minus 2 is going to get you 3 over negative 2 minus negative 2 is going to get you a plus 2, right? And negative 2 plus 2, they're opposites, so they cancel out. And we get a 3 over 0. This is where a lot of you will make a mistake, right? So please be aware of this. Anything over 0 is not 0. It's not just going to be the number on top. A lot of you during class today said that this was 3. A lot of you said this was 0. This is undefined. Undefined. Right? So you don't have a slope here. Slope is undefined. Right? So anything over 0 is always going to get you an undefined value. If that's kind of hard to grasp, take out a calculator. The one on your phone is fine. Type in 3 over 0 or 3 divided by 0 and see what happens. If something strange happens, right, it's because it doesn't exist, right? You should get an error. So 3 divided by 0 is not okay, right? So one way that I taught you guys is that a 0 on top, this is okay, right? But a 0 on the bottom, if I see a 0 on the bottom, no, right? This is not okay. This is not okay. This is undefined, right? So these are important to memorize, right? If you see a 0 on the top, this is just going to get you a 0, right? And this is the difference between an undefined and a 0 slope. All right, so make sure you understand the difference because we will ask that on the test. All right, so now continuing this topic, find the slope of the line given its graph. These were a little bit easier. These were in the first section of this entire chapter. I taught you guys rise over run. So one way to find it using a graph is m equals rise over run, right? Your rise is going to be your up and down. So whether it goes up or down, your run is going to be your left and right, right? So it's going to be the vertical change over the horizontal change. So to do it on a graph, I would pick a point, one that lands on a nice corner, right? So this is a clear number. It's not between two boxes or anything. It's like right in the corner. I would pick another one like that, and I see one right here at -2, right? So I would just do rise over run between these 2 points. Doesn't matter which direction you go, you should get the same answer. So I'm going to go to this top one to the bottom one. So to do that, I would go down 5 units, right? So rise of -5 and a run of, I'm going to go +2 units in this direction. So our rise is -5. That means you're going down 5 units, and your run is a +2, and this is your slope. All right. So given a graph, it's pretty simple. You don't have to do much math. You just have to count the spaces accurately. All right, I'll do the same thing for this one right here. I would pick nice points that land in the corner, right? I wouldn't pick one that lands in between, right? I would pick one that lands in a corner. So this one, and then there's another one right here. It doesn't really look like it, but the arrow's pointing right at it. So I would do the same thing. Rise, I would go down 2, and our run, I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our run is a +5, right? So your slope is going to be rise over run, which is -2 over +5. All right. Okay, good. Now, these last two, this horizontal and the vertical line, shouldn't require any work. Just by looking at the graph, you should be able to tell what the slope is going to be. Any vertical line, we had said that these have an undefined slope. All right, similarly, any horizontal line is going to have a slope of 0. Super important that you guys know this distinction. They're going to be tested on this. all right? So any vertical line is going to have an undefined slope, and any horizontal line is going to have a slope of 0, right? Do not mix them up. They're two completely different answers. All right. Okay. So now for these next few questions, I'm just asking you various information about a line given its equation. All right. So for number 1, I'm asking you for the slope and the y-intercept, right? You should know, if you know the forms of a line, these questions should be super easy, right? This is the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. This is y equals mx plus b, right? So then all you have to do is match. M is going to be whatever's in front of your x, which is 3, and b is whatever's by itself, so your y-intercept is going to be 2. And that answers this question, right? Super easy. This next problem, you should recognize that this is in point-slope form. Remember, point-slope form, you're given a point, you're given a slope. It's going to be y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, right? y1 and x1 are the coordinates of your point. So I'm going to have that 4 and negative 4 are going to be x1 and y1. All right. Now keep in mind your formula is a minus. There's a minus already in there, so you're not including this minus right here in your answer. So this one right here, this is going to be y1, and this is going to be x1. And since this is positive, we're going to change the sign to make it negative, right? Because minus a negative gets you that positive that you see right here. So your point is going to be negative 4, comma 4. And then your slope is just whatever's outside of your parentheses. In this case, it's going to be 1/2. So your slope is 1/2. Right? Hopefully pretty simple. All right. Now, for this one's in standard form. Remember, standard form takes the form of an ax plus by equals c. All right. And the slope of a line in standard form, we had said that that was negative a over b. All right, in this case, a is going to be 5, b is going to be 4. So your slope is going to be negative 5 over 4. Just put negative a over b, and there's your slope. All right, and now we want to find the x and y intercepts. Right, so to find the x-intercepts, I'm going to take my equation, I'm going to plug in a 0 for y. So plug in 0 for y. Now, another way that you can do this, if I know that the equation is 5x plus 4y equals 20, I had taught you guys in class, if you're not comfortable plugging in a 0 for y right here, and doing 4 times 0, and then simplifying that, and then doing 5x equals 20, what you can do is you can take your hand, or I mean, I guess if it's on your paper or your iPad, take your finger, cover whatever you're not looking for. If you're not looking for y and you're looking for the x-intercept, cover the 4y, the entire thing. So I'm going to do that for you guys. I'm going to block it out. I'm going to block this part out. We don't need that y because we're just looking for the x-intercept, and you're just solving 5x equals 20. And all you have to do is divide by 5 on both sides, and you get x equals 4. Right, so as an ordered pair, your x-intercept is going to get you 4, 0. All right, that's all you have to do for your x-intercepts. Right, your y-intercept is going to be the same thing. You're going to plug in 0 for x, but if you know your equation is 5x plus 4y equals 20, right, take your finger or hand, cover whatever you're not looking for. We're not looking for the x. Sorry, 20. You're not looking for the x, so I'm going to go ahead and scribble out the x. We're not looking for that. So what we're left with is 4y equals 20. Divide by 4 on both sides, and you get y equals 5. Right? If y equals 5, that means the ordered pair for your intercept is going to be 0, 5. All right? So this is the most math that you might have to do. Right, so a lot of these questions are going to be fairly straightforward, right? But there's not a lot of super difficult math to be doing in these problems, right? Just a lot of concepts to know. All right, so you will also be asked to graph lines given an equation, right? And with these kinds of problems, you just need to know what kind of equation you're given and what kind of information to find with that equation. So this first one, hopefully you can recognize this is an equation in standard form, right? So if I have an equation in standard form, right, remember I'm going to find my intercepts, right? So something in standard form, it's easiest to find your intercepts, right? It takes the form of an ax plus by equals c, right? So I'm going to go ahead and try to find my intercepts. So I'm going to start with my x-intercepts. For your x-intercepts, remember if your equation is 4x minus 6y equals 24, right, what I had taught you guys, cover whatever you're not looking for. You're not looking for y, so cover the y. We get 4x equals 24, divide both sides by 4, and we get x equals positive 6. So our ordered pair is going to be 6, 0. And plotting that point on the graph is going to get you a point right here. All right, similar with your y-intercepts. Your y-intercepts. All right, if your equation is 4x minus 6y equals 24, all right, cover everything that you're not looking for. You're not looking for your x, so cover whatever has the x. 4x, you don't need that. So you're left with negative 6y equals 24. Divide both sides by negative 6, and we get y equals negative 4. So as an ordered pair, this is going to get you 0, negative 4. I'm going to find that on my graph, and I'm going to plot that point. And then your graph is going to go between these 2 points. I'm going to connect the dots right here. So it's going to look something like that. All right, so that's how you can plot a graph using the intercepts. All right, so hopefully you're okay with that. This next equation, number 2, this is an equation in point-slope form, right? So remember, those take the form of y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, right? In this case, we can clearly see our m, right? Our m is going to be 5 over 2. And our x1, y1, that's our point right here. We have a plus 1 and a plus 3. So remember, the original equation has a minus y1 minus x1. So your point x1, y1 is going to be the opposite of the signs that you see, right? It's going to be a negative 1 and a negative 3. All right, if I see an x plus 1, that's x minus negative 1, y plus 3, y minus negative 3. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and plot that point right there. That's this point right here. And then your slope of 5 over 2, that's telling you to rise 5 units and run 2 units. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2 units to the right. It's going to get you a point right here. And all you have to do is connect the 2 points. You get something that looks like this. All right, good. All right, now one more like this. This is the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. Remember, slope-intercept form is mx plus b. All right, and we have a slope, m, and that's 3 over 4. That's whatever's in front of your x. And we have a y-intercept, b. And b, in this case, it's negative 2. This one, we have a plus b in our equation, so if you see a minus 2, you need to keep that minus with the b value. All right, remember, when I taught this, I said b stands for begin. Right, always start at your negative 2 at your y-intercept. All right, and this m stands for move. This is telling you where to go from your y-intercept. Right, and since our slope is 5 over 4, that's a rise of 3 and a run of 4. I'm sorry, I said 5 over 3 over 4. So you're going to go up 1, 2, 3, and you're going to run 1, 2, 3, 4 units over here. And then you end up at this point right here. I'm going to go ahead and connect those 2 dots. And you get a line that looks something like this. All right, so that's all the kinds of graphs that you're going to see. I gave you guys one of each. You guys have plenty of practice with more of these if you need, which you can ask me in class if you have any questions about any of those, all right? All right, so the other kinds of questions that we're going to ask you guys, is if we give you a graph to find the equation in slope-intercept form. All right, so in slope-intercept form, remember, it's in the name. You need a slope and you need an intercept b. All right, so let's look at this first one right here. Your intercept is always where you start. Like I said, b means begin. Always start at your y-intercept. Your y-intercept in this case is going to be this value right here at -2. That's where it crosses the y-axis. So I'm going to say b equals -2. And your slope is just going to be where you go from there, right? So I'm just going to pick a point that lands exactly on a corner, right? I don't want anything that's in between a box or anything. I want it right in a corner. All right, right there. That's a good one. All right, and then from here, we do our rise over run, right? Between 2 points on a graph, you can go up however many times you need. In this case, I have a rise of 3, and I have a run of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units to the right. All right, so that means our slope is going to be your rise over run, which is 3 over 5. And then putting that in slope-intercept form, I'm going to get y equals m, all right, x, plus b, which is -2. All right, and this is the equation of our line in slope-intercept form. All right, I'll do the same thing with the next one. All right, find our y-intercept. That's always where you begin. All right, so I'm going to pick that point right here. It's going to be this one right here. This is where our blue line crosses the y-axis. So I'm going to say b is, it looks like it's -4. And then our slope, we're going to do rise over run. So pick another point that lands directly on a corner, and that's going to be this point right here. So I'm going to go up 2 to the right 3. So that's a rise of 2 and a run of 3. So our m is going to be 2 over 3. And this is enough information we need. So it's going to be y equals m, so 2 over 3, x plus b, which is -4 in this case. All right, and there's the equation of our line in slope-intercept form. All right, the last one right here, we have a completely vertical line. If you remember from the first slide, vertical lines always take the form of x equals a number. That number just depends on where it hits the x-axis, right? So just look at this graph. Where are we hitting the x-axis? It looks like that's a value of 5 right here, right? So that means x is going to equal 5. All right, and that's the equation of your line. That's all you have to do. Nothing crazy is going on there. All right, similarly, if I gave you a horizontal line, like for example, I gave you one like that. All right, horizontal is always y equals a number, right? And in this case, y is crossing +2. So your equation is going to be y equals 2, right? It's just horizontal or vertical. Where is it crossing the x or y axis? All right. Okay. And then the last section is going to be with parallel and perpendicular lines. If we remember parallel, I'll write it on the side. Parallel, right? Same slope. All right, perpendicular lines is going to be the opposite reciprocal. All right, so what I would do in a question like this is just identify what the slope is. All right, that's going to get you pretty far in a question like this. All right, so looking at this first one, right, y equals 2x plus 5. It's in slope-intercept form, so I'm just going to take whatever's in front of my x, and that's my slope. So in this case, m is equal to 2. I would go to the next one, and I would do the same thing, right? This one's in point slope form. Your slope is whatever's in front of your parentheses, and this one's going to be 2. So m is equal to 2. All right, the next one's in standard form. Remember, standard form is ax plus by equals c. And in this case, m is going to equal negative a over b. All right, so then we get m is equal to -3 over -6. And that's going to get you positive 1 over 2, right? You can cancel out the negatives because they're both negative. And then 3 divided by 6, that you can cancel out a factor of 3 from the top and the bottom. So in this case, m is equal to 1/2. All right. And then this last one, y equals 2x minus 6, this is also a slope-intercept equation. So your slope is going to be whatever's in front of x, so m equals -2. So let's identify which pairs are parallel or perpendicular. Well, you can see right away that m equals 2 and m equals 2 are the same. So that means this equation right here, all right, let me highlight it. So this, all right, this line right here and this line right here, these are parallel. All right, so I'm going to say that these are parallel, right? And I'm just going to look at the other two slopes and see, can we determine if they're perpendicular? Remember, perpendicular is an opposite reciprocal. So I'm going to look at m equals 1/2. The opposite is going to be -1/2, all right? And then your reciprocal is going to be, you flip this fraction, so we get a -2/1, which is just -2. And notice, we have a -2 right here. That means the slope of this line right here and this line right here are perpendicular to each other. All right, so then I'm going to say that these last two lines are perpendicular. All right, we have the opposite reciprocals of those lines, right? And that's all we'll ask you on the test. We're not going to ask you to graph these. We're not going to ask you to write an equation of a parallel and perpendicular. We're just going to ask you identify which ones are parallel and perpendicular. All right. And then for this last one, let's do the same thing, right? Let's find our slopes. All right, so looking at this first one, this is in standard form. We have an a and a b. All right, and then if you remember, m is -a/b, so in this case it's -2/3. All right, for this next one, this is in point slope form. Remember, point slope form, we have a slope in front of our parentheses, so m is going to equal -3/2. All right, for this next one right here, this is in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, so m is going to be whatever's in front of our x, so m is going to equal 3/2. All right, and then for this last one, y is equal to -3/2, right? This is also in slope-intercept form, so we have an equation -3/2, like this. All right, so now let's identify, it's easiest first to identify which ones are the same, and then you can see that this slope right here and this slope right here are the same. All right, so what does that mean? That means we can say that this line right here is parallel to this line right here. All right, so these two lines are parallel. All right, so then let's just see if the other two are perpendicular, right? Remember, perpendicular, we want an opposite reciprocal slope, right? So the opposite is going to get you 2/3, right, of -2/3. All right, opposite, you just change the sign. And then reciprocal is you're going to flip the fraction. All right, so it's going to become 3/2. And then let's check, is the other one 3/2? It is, right? So this is the opposite reciprocal of this. All right, what does that mean? That means this line right here and this line right here are perpendicular. All right, so the ones that are highlighted in the light purple are parallel, and the ones that are highlighted in that light blue are perpendicular, right? So all you guys are responsible for knowing is how to identify if lines are parallel and perpendicular just by looking at the slope. You don't need any other pieces of information. If you notice with all of these, I didn't even look at the y-intercept, the points. I didn't find my x or y intercepts or anything. I just found the slope, right? And a lot of these were fairly simple to find the slope. So you just need to recognize, are they the same or are they opposite reciprocals? All right, and that covers everything that you're going to see on your test. Right, there's plenty of practice in Canvas from old assignments and anything. We'll review more in class, all right? But you guys can use this to study, to check your work.